Hey there, I'm excited. This is my first podcast. And really, the reason I started this podcast was to give back to the community. I've been fortunate enough to work with a lot of great clients over the years, and this is my added value back to the community. And what a great episode to kick off. This is Laboratory Professional Week. Just full disclosure, I'm going to get into why I'm wearing this lanyard. But in the meantime, I wanted to celebrate specifically lab professionals. This is Medical Laboratory Professional Week. So a huge shout out to all the lab professionals globally who help deliver all that vital information to support, obviously, patient outcomes, patient healthcare. Your hard work and dedication help all the healthcare teams obviously make those informed decisions and timely intervention. So a huge shout out. Thank you. Your contributions to companies, patients, and obviously the overall healthcare industry, well, it's invaluable, right? So a huge shout out. I'm honored to be able to talk about it specifically in this podcast in the first episode. So huge shout out. The other thing I mentioned early when I first came on, why am I wearing this lanyard? Well, also coming off Medical Laboratory Week, I was at AACR, which is one of the largest cancer research conferences in the world. It happens every year, typically, and this is an unofficial number, but it's around 20,000 attendees. So it's a massive conference. It's leading up to a much bigger conference, ASCO, that's happening pretty soon here in June and next month. But AACR coming off, I'm still feeling some good vibes, some good goosebumps. All the cancer research that's happening in the space continues to evolve and progress, and it's exciting. One of the stats, real quickly, 4 in 10 cancers diagnosed in the US each year are related to potentially preventable causes, right? So part of my job as a marketer for life science, medical device, and genetics and genomics and cancer research is to get a lot of these poster presentations, spotlight theaters, all that out, right? So other physicians, other HCPs, oncologists, and all the medical professionals and all the healthcare professionals that are out there. That's why I wake up. That's why I'm passionate about it. So attending AACR was amazing. Some high level, not granular research, but I wanted to mention a few things when it came to, as I was talking about spotlight theaters, poster presentations. I was able to get into a few of these, and it's jam packed. As you can imagine, 20,000 people. The way they had the exhibitor hall split up was between, it felt like you were two different conferences. One part of the exhibit hall had, I don't know, 200 or 300 exhibitors. There was a split down the middle, which had like poster presentations. And then they had another exhibit hall area where they had another couple hundred. And then there was also more poster presentations, and then also spotlight theaters. So I was able to get into 4 spotlight theaters. The first one in no particular order, but Tempus Labs. So they had a really cool fireside chat. They were talking about multimodal real world data and advanced machine learning around AI methodologies. So very timely, obviously, with the AI part of this. They are also partnering with a lot of drug developers, like GSK was in this fireside chat. So it's really powering next gen drug development and also driving, again, to my earlier point about 4 in 10 cancers diagnosed can be preventable. Well, they're helping that prevention, right? Because they're really trying to figure out with the drug companies, the drug development, driving precision medicine forward. So they're definitely in that research phase, driving those results. Another one was BioScribe Genomics. They were really highlighting the power of a cohort over a dozen ductal carcinomas, which is specifically around a biopsy. They've got this technology. It's called Resolve, OME. Check it out. Everything that I've mentioned in this podcast is going to be in the show notes. There's going to be links in there as well. So check it out. The other last 2 spotlight theaters that I was able to get into, LabCorp, the power of ctDNA testing and therapy selections and reoccurrence monitoring, which is obviously, as we all know, super important. The last one was with Agilent Technologies. They had a spotlight theater around next-gen immunology response prediction. They had a partnership with Boston Gene, and where they have a model around AI and multi-omic data and how they can integrate that. So AI, obviously, a couple of in these spotlight theaters. Exciting to see all this. I'm just downloading a lot of the information. Obviously, when you're there, it's like information overload. But then when you come back and step back, you can really dig into a lot of these companies and a lot of this groundbreaking research and platforms that they're executing to obviously help patient outcomes when it comes to cancer. So exciting. Great thing about it, it's going to be in San Diego next year, which is going to be a shorter trip for me. But regardless, wherever this conference is at, always love attending. The other opportunity that's coming up for conferences, and if you're in the oncology space, let's stay in that space for a moment here. But ASCO, it's in Chicago, the Windy City. It's the Super Bowl of oncology, what I call it. Specifically, there's around 30,000 attendees. And so a lot of times what we're doing for major conferences like ASCO, we're already working with clients well in advance, like in November, because you're trying to influence, let's say, medical oncologists. You need to start that way in advance. ASCO is a major conference. So, how do you stand out? You're fighting for those 30,000 badge scans. So we're helping anything from well-funded startups to obviously billion-dollar clients with marketing strategies, digital targeting strategies. And as we develop this podcast with my team, you'll hear about more strategies when it comes to digital marketing, video strategies around conferences. I'm not going to get into specifically a lot of tactics and strategies on this first episode, but definitely a lot of things will be in the show notes. So check this out when time permits. There's a lot of other conferences coming up past ASCO. ASCO happens the first week in June. As it happens this week, we just got booked for a different conference coming up, a transplant conference in San Diego, I believe. That's right after ASCO. And we mapped out a really robust video strategy for a client, specifically around their KOLs. And again, I'm not going to get into it specifically on this podcast. There will be some show notes that you can check out. But at a high level, conferences are a great opportunity to be super efficient with video strategies. As I was mentioning, we've got KOLs. You can either do those KOLs on the trade show floor or in a hospitality suite. In this case, we're actually capturing it in a hospitality suite. We're going to do a couple fireside chats, 4 of those to be particular. And we're also going to capture some audio with those long format fireside chats and help turn those into a podcast for a client. So more to come on that strategy as we start developing it. The other thing when it comes to ASCO and also a lot of other conferences, I mentioned Spotlight Theaters at AACR. There's also product theaters that are happening at ASCO. In the show notes, you'll see a way, if you have a product theater, how to protect that investment. Obviously, clients are spending about $100,000 for product theaters. And I was on a client call today. There's not a lot of things that you can do specifically, like the setup for ASCO. We're having a tendency to be a little bit more creative with our clients and how they're presenting data research to make it a little bit more appealing than just standing up, presenting in slides. And we'll continue to do that. But with some of the clients that we can bring some valuable creative ideas like a fireside chat, but that doesn't happen at ASCO. They shut that down from a fireside chat stylistic video recording for the product theater. So it's going to be your traditional, and that's totally fine. ASCO's very conservative when it comes to that data and those presentations. So totally understandable. We're actually a preferred partner vendor of the venue in McCormick Place. So we do a lot of other video strategies and content capture strategically with a lot of other clients, not only in medical device, but biotech and life science, but also anything outside of that, which is more B2B, since we are a preferred vendor at McCormick Place. The other thing I wanted to mention on this podcast, since I want to give back to the community, I have carved out a section specifically for this podcast around now hiring. Obviously, the landscape of the biotech and life science and genetics and the whole industry is really, there's been a big paradigm shift because a lot of the biotech companies, the stock prices have dipped. Unfortunately, funding has kind of dried up to a certain extent, but hey, this is all seasonal. We're at a low point at this time. Things will definitely pick back up. So what's happened is through nutrition, obviously a lot of these companies hired aggressively during the pandemic. They were a lot of companies doing COVID testing. So there was high demand, right? So when demand drops, you got to lay people off. So to that point, I've carved out a section in the notes specifically around any job opportunities that I've came across for this particular week. And just looking at it real quick here, there's like 5 or 6 different jobs available specifically for marketers, and definitely going to start putting up there for event people. I've got an event marketing event coordinator for one of our clients, Lab Conico, that's available. That'll be in the show notes, but I'm also going to include anything seller related, because again, as the biotech and life science genetics genomics industry, it's going to start curving back up. I think hopefully at this point this year, we've maybe potentially hit a bottom, but we'll see. So in the show notes, check out that Lab Conico marketing events coordinator in Vitae. There's a position open there. Let me click on it real quick just so I can give you specifically the position. So it's in women's health. It's a global marketing manager. So definitely high level when it comes to a marketing position there with a large company like Invitae. Let me scroll down here to see what other ones I have available in the show notes. Path AI Diagnostics has a marketing position open as well. BioRed Laboratories has a marketing position open. Somagen has a variety of different positions, not only on the sales side, but also on the marketing side. And then just real quick, getting back to Path AI, it looks like there's a marketing position there. So again, if you're looking for opportunities, please check out that. Again, the best place to get access to that will definitely be in the show notes, or feel free to DM me on LinkedIn, and I'm happy to send you a particular list to those job opportunities. On the podcast, you're on my podcast right now, but I also have a lot of relationships with other podcasters in the space. So I'm going to throw a big shout out to DNA Today. Kira does an amazing job in getting wonderful speakers and wonderful podcast presenters on her show. She's done such an amazing job that she's got 1% of podcasts globally. And she was the winner of 2020 and 21 Science and Medicine Podcast Award. So she goes much deeper, obviously, when it comes to like genetic testing, those sorts of things on her podcast. But she's got over about 40 sponsors, including leaders like from Illumina and Thermo Fisher. So again, that'll be access to that podcast. You may have heard of it, DNA Today again, but it'll be in the show notes. Another big give back to the community. Again, that's the goal for this podcast. Another opportunity to network, connect. Obviously, I mentioned the job hiring. The other opportunity is we have a LinkedIn group that we're pretty proud of. It's growing rapidly. And it's a LinkedIn group. It's a community of biotech, medical device, diagnostic marketers, and also sales leaders, with the goal of sharing, obviously, some important information, and then also networking, of course. So anybody that's listening to this podcast, we'd be honored to have you join the group as well. It's not information overload. We actually post content about once a week. We gather and aggregate a lot of different content. That schedule may change, but at this point, right now, again, it's really a lot of networking. The posting happens about once a week. Usually it's post on every Tuesday. So again, that access to that LinkedIn group is going to be in the show notes. Excited for the first episode here. Looking forward to growing with everybody and giving back to this valuable community that's given me so much over the last decade or so that I've been working with, engaging our clients and targeting scientists, researchers, niche HCPs. So excited to have you join on the podcast and future episodes. Bye for now.